Broadcasting from the Hip Hop Weekly studios, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Civic Cypher. I am your host, Ramses Ja. Big shout out to my man Q Ward, who is out of town for the moment, but he will be back soon. Trust and believe. But have no fear, this week I have a good friend of the show who is stopping by to have a very important conversation and a long overdue conversation with us today about pronouns. Now, again, it's a long overdue conversation, and we're well aware that pronouns have taken center stage over the past few years, and we wanted to give this topic the right amount of attention, the right kind of attention, and have someone who could contribute what we would consider like lived experience, so that we can understand where it comes from and how to be better brothers. In our case, Q and I, brothers to our siblings out there who are trans, and to become more aligned with the trans community. So stay tuned, because we are going to be talking with a good friend of the show. Her name is Mea, about what that means to be acknowledged authentically and in the light that you choose for yourself. In addition to that, we are going to discuss sort of some of the implications of kind of letting some of the air out of the ball, letting people live their truth, walk the path that they feel is appropriate for them, and what it feels like from that perspective to be supported by the people around you, the people in your community, and so forth. In addition, we're going to touch on maybe the opposite end of that, which is what it feels like to be attacked for, living your truth, which is obviously another part of the reality of our trans siblings. And so stay tuned for all that and more. But first and foremost, let's discuss some ebony excellence. So to be fair, this ebony excellence is long overdue. This is something that we've had in the coffers, I suppose, waiting to shine some light on it. But this reading comes from News Central Africa, and we're talking about a young lady named Faith Odosuni. She's a Nigerian student who won a global math tournament, beating China, United Kingdom, and the United States, and others, and cementing her place in history. Odosuni, or Odunsi, sorry, this is how I'm saying it, is the winner of the Global Open Mathematics competition. She excelled in all stages of the competition and didn't expect that she'd be declared the winner until the last round, when she answered more questions than her competitors. And this is important. She attended secondary school at the Ambassador School in Ota, Ogun State, Southwest Nigeria. So she was a student of the Nigerian school system. A couple of cool things about her: she solved 19 mathematical questions in 60 seconds, becoming the best candidate in the 2021 mathematics competition, beating her next competitor, who only answered 10. She took part in the Global Mathematics Tournament, which is an international competition with participants from Europe, Africa, America, Asia, and Australia, where she scored top marks. In 2018, she received a record holder award for the highest number of questions answered on Cowbellpedia Secondary School's Mathematics TV quiz show, which is a Nigerian national mathematics television quiz show, where she answered 19 questions in 60 seconds. And I promise this list goes on. She's a fantastic young lady, and she's still going right now. She's attending MIT, studying computer science and electrical engineering. Again, be sure to check out her story. Again, her name is Faith Odunsi. And I think that you will see, like we do, that she is a shining example of ebony excellence. Okay, so I have a dear friend, someone that I love with my whole heart. And this individual is a flower in bloom. This individual is dynamic. We all are, but I've been able to observe some specific changes, adaptations, whatever the language is. I'm about to learn it with you in real time on this show. I think it's important. I will always say that it's important that we learn how to love people, and we teach people how to love us. And in recent years, I should say, in this country, we've been having conversations about how people wish to be identified, specifically with respect to their pronouns. And I consider myself to be a woke individual. I'd rather be woke than asleep. But in the true meaning of wokeism, very progressive in my thinking, very accommodating of my brothers and sisters that I share this planet with, trying to live at peace and have the best, most fulfilling experience with this life, but also advocate for the best experience on this life for people who may not have the same access as I do. And it's in that spirit that I wanted to have today's conversation. So, Mea, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
In brief, I want you to know a little bit about the person we're talking about. So I'll paint a picture. I met Mea when she was 17. She came to my house from out of town. And I am a grown man. And you're older than that now, of course. Yeah. But when I first met you, you came to my house and the idea was to learn to DJ. I've shared on the show many times that I'm a DJ. But you also told me something that was very profound. You said, I'm going to school to become a civil rights attorney. And that moved me because Mea is white. Mea's mother and father are white. And they are both doctors. So if you know, like I know, you know that means that Mea did not have to be a civil rights attorney. Mea could have did anything that she wanted to. But I think that kind of shows her heart. Being born with considerably less in the way of obstacles and problems that you would anticipate on your path to whatever it is you wanted to be. You choose to take the hard route for the benefit of someone else, people that don't even look like you, some people who might even be angry with people who look like you for the position that they're in. It's a lot to reconcile. If you've done that by age 17, what I said makes sense. What I said was, anything you need, now and forever, you call me, I got you. And when Mea announced to me that she had changed her pronouns to better reflect, so forgive me, again, I'm learning right now.
All good.
When Mea announced the changing of pronouns, I naturally would accommodate anybody to the best I can.
Yeah.
I make mistakes. There's other people I know who identify as they, or they've changed their pronouns from she to he, these sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel really bad because I want to make sure that everyone knows that it's a safe space. I got you. I would protect you.
Yeah.
But it's language, and I guess it's wired into a different part of your brain. So.
This is Maggie B. Noen, and we'll be right back with more Civic Cypher after a quick break.
I'm Donald Trump.
And I'm Joe Biden.
And there's only one thing that could bring me and Sleepy Joe together.
Come on, man. Don't corn pop me.
That's in support of the Independent Riot podcast, where they interview independent thinkers on controversial ideas like the dangers of voice cloning technology.
But is it available on any gramophone machine, Donald?
Yes, Joe, it is. And it's bigly important. Many people are saying, that's the Independent Riot podcast. Not right, not left, just real. Subscribe now.
Or I'll sock you in your mouth, Jack.
And I still know that, even if you get the language wrong.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But this you've tasked your brother with honoring you as you are blossoming and blooming. And so that responsibility is still mine. I appreciate the grace, but the responsibility is mine. What I wanted to ask, now that we've painted this picture, is for you to talk us through what it means to go from having one set of pronouns to another set of pronouns, and how does that fulfill you? I figured the benefit would help us, people who are coming to terms with pronouns and adjusting pronouns. It will help us to be better brothers and sisters to those of us who are evolving.
Yeah.
Okay. Floor is yours.
You can edit this, right?
Of course.
Okay. Okay. Well, I've told you this, but to kind of recount, I first started shifting my pronouns in February of 2020.
Okay.
So it's been like 3.5 years now. And I first started using she, they. And it started really just as I had a friend who started to use different pronouns. And I kind of thought to myself, well, like, how would I feel about they in reference to me? Then I kind of pushed the thought aside. And at that point, I had already identified as queer, like for my sexuality, but I had not thought about gender. And then the thought came up again. And then I had a friend come to visit, and I was telling her about it, and I hadn't told anyone about it at that point. And we were laying on my floor, and I was sobbing because it was hitting something, and I didn't understand. I had no idea. I hadn't really thought about it. So I started to use she, they to try it out, to see how it felt. And it unlocked something that I didn't know needed to be unlocked. And when I think back on my relationship to gender, I didn't ever feel, when I was younger, I didn't feel tied to being a girl. I always liked that there are a lot of spaces in which I could just be one of the boys. I could just be myself, and that gender wasn't a roadblock in that, in terms of me having friends.
Sure.
And I didn't feel attached to the identity of being a woman, except for when it came to my experience of living under patriarchy. Like, I knew what it meant to connect to other women about the experience of like a glance on the street that is like very sexualizing and feels deeply uncomfortable and sometimes violent. Like, that's an experience, or being discounted on being able to do whatever it was, like being a DJ, for example, wanting to be DJ. I recognized that it was like, okay, I understand that there are so few DJs that I see that look like me in the sense of the body type that I have, that I'm assigned female at birth. It was mostly cis men that I was seeing DJing. So I felt connected in that way, but it was not necessarily, I feel like a woman. So, but I didn't think about it that much. I started using she, they, and then for a few years, it became more comfortable and felt more right. I realized I only heard my friends using they, them for me. I didn't really hear many people refer to me as she, except for my mom, who, she's known about this since I started using different pronouns, but it has taken a long time. It takes time for the language to adjust. I know that she loves me. I know that it's taking time for her to understand what this means in terms of identity change, and also that, like, it's hard for her to, she, had spent at that point 21 years only using she. And so for her to use something else, it's taking time. Right.
Okay.
And then I came home from a trip where I'd spent some time alone that last summer, about a year ago. And I heard someone refer to me as she. I guess, okay, I'm getting a little off track, but that's okay. I'll come back around.
Okay.
I heard someone say like, oh, she, blah, blah, blah. And I had a moment of being like, who are you talking about? I didn't see anyone else around. And I was like, oh, that's me. You're talking about me. And it just did not, it felt like they were talking about someone else. I think that since I've used they, them, since I started using they, them, and I think this whole sort of experience of using different pronouns, I was describing it to a friend last night, actually. It felt like I was in a room, and I was in this room. I saw that there was a door that said man, right? And I was like, that's not the door for me. I don't want to walk through that. Doesn't feel like the right door. And I saw a door out of the corner of my eye. I was like, okay. I didn't really think, or, I just learned about the door, because also I think using they, them is relatively newer, right? It's not that non-binary people are new, but I think this change in like pronouns is relatively new within the past like several years. And like becoming more popular and whatnot. It was like, I saw the door out of the corner of my eye and I hadn't really thought like, do I want to walk to that door? And then I was like, I'm looking at the door. Maybe, maybe I might peek through it, but I'm not sure. Do I really need to open this door? Like, I know this room, and maybe not, doesn't feel like the best room, but it's a room that I know. And then I opened that door and I'm in a new room. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. I had no idea what could be waiting beside this door. And then in that room, in this analogy, that's like she, they, I see this other door, right? I see they, them, and I see more doors because also now that I'm starting to think about gender, I understand that there are different combinations of pronouns and that pronouns are also one thing around like gender that doesn't necessarily determine your gender. And it also doesn't, I see he, him there. I see he, they, I see they, she, I see they, them, but I see all of these doors, but I see the they, them door, like again, in the corner of my eye. And it's like, okay, I see it. It doesn't really feel right. But then like over time, I'm like, okay, this room is feeling better, but then the room starts to feel a little bit too small. And I see this door and it's again, I think about the door because I thought about using they, them. It's like, do I really need to walk through this door? Like, I don't know. People are still going to call me she, but I think about this door and I start to move close to the door. I'm like, you know what? Might as well try opening the door and let's see. And it's just like, it's like I opened the door and I'm no longer in a building. It's like, it is so expansive and and that's how it's felt, I think, to use these pronouns. I continue to feel like there's more and more space for me within it. I continue to learn more about myself. It gives me more freedom internally. I just can't, it feels free. That's how it feels.
So let me ask you this. When you talk about it feeling free, I guess maybe for a lot of us that our pronouns they have roots. They're not changing at all. There's no need. Not that changing anything is bad or nothing like that. But I just kind of know me. Yeah. You know what I mean? I guess that's it. I think I'm answering my own question because I know me. I know who I am. I know the sound of my voice. Yeah. I know when it's me talking. And I know when someone is talking about me. And maybe if I didn't have that security of knowing those things around myself, then maybe I might explore the different rooms, to borrow from your analogy, to see if there's something that works a little bit better. One of the things that a lot of folks push back against is that many of the people who are changing their pronouns, they tend to be young. You mentioned that you kind of went through this when you were about 21. Yeah. But a big part of this country is concerned with, I don't even know if I'm saying this right, but they're unnecessarily concerned with what I will describe here, at least, as a trans agenda. And they've lumped in the changing of pronouns by younger people into that narrative. Now, I want to say something because I just know this part is true. Yeah. I don't believe that is a real thing. Yeah. I think that when people learn a very small piece about someone's sexuality, they then define them as 100% sexual all the time. Yeah. Right. If I was to say I'm polyamorous, for instance, then people would think that I'm just that. I'm a full whole person. I go on boats, I cross bridges. Yeah. and there's one part of my life that has that, you know what I'm saying? So I think when people think about trans people, they think that that's 100% who they are 100% of the time, is their sexual expression, and they're expressing that sexuality 100% of the time. And that's not true. Another thing that I think is worth mentioning, and I want to get your thoughts, is a lot of people come to terms with their sexuality at a young age. Granted, sexuality, from what I understand, it's fluid, or it can be fluid. It can change different parts of your life. You know, it's my understanding of the science of it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, when people start awakening to their sexual self, it happens at a younger age, typically. And I want to get your thoughts on, I know you're not trans.
I do identify as trans.
Oh, okay. So then there we go. So I learned that too. So what I want you to do is give us some insight into maybe how it feels to bear witness to that attempt at chronicling this narrative, and kind of some of the things that I said about, you know, people coming to terms with their sexuality at a young age, and maybe there's the agenda being imagined. Just kind of give me some feedback on what I think, at least.
Yeah, I think I think that's something that's been interesting to watch in many different ways, is that I think we have come a lot farther in understanding that people can understand their sexualities from a young age. Not everyone does, and it is fluid. Like, I think things can change over time. I didn't start using the language of queer until I was 19, and it took me a long time to realize, like, oh, that's what that is. And so I think that if we can see that with sexuality, then I think that it's surprising to then see also, I also think that can be true with gender, right? It's just like an understanding of who you are. And also these things can change. I think when I think about, well, there are a couple of things that come to mind. Okay. There's this non-binary writer, poet, speaker, Alok Vaid Menon. They are someone who I really appreciate their input. They have a beautiful book on called Beyond the Gender Binary, which is like a really nice little intro into thinking about beyond the gender binary. Anyways, one of the things that they say oftentimes is, and this isn't a direct quote, but is that what folks are afraid of, that it's not that people are afraid of genderqueer people and people who are exploring gender or present in different ways. It's that they're afraid of like what that means for all that folks have had to suppress themselves. I think that like, while I don't think there's a trans agenda, I think that what I find in like trans and non-binary community is openings. It's like, okay, well, what if we take away these boxes, right? What opens? Like, what does it mean to express yourself via dress in a way that feels the best for you? Yeah. And that everyone should have access to color, to texture, to different pieces of garments. Like, it's not, and what does it mean to be feminine? What does it mean to be masculine? I think it's a lot about like opening up that there are so many ways to be in this world, and we don't have to just be what's handed to us. And I think that it encourages, I think, a lot of imagination, a lot of creativity. It's like, what's possible? Sure. So, first off, I appreciate that. And let's do this. Let's put a pin in this, and we'll come right back to it in just a second.